SoCalQOL. Happy Wednesday. Technically, it's hump day, right? Ah. Anyways, everybody, so excited to chat today using my excited phrase again, which, it can get old, but I appreciate you guys at least holding on for me. And today I didn't really have a specific thing in mind to chat about, but ironically, as these things do happen, life goes on, and all of a sudden, here we are, and we have a topic. And it's actually, I think, a really important topic because at the end of the day, we all need to have our wellness in check. We all need to know the tall tale signs of a good business person, a good boss, a good business partner, and just a good and bad opportunity or a good and bad event or festival. So, without further ado, we are talking about the Fyre Festival that Netflix just so happened to make their own original documentary on. And the funny thing, what I just realized as I was searching some information, that I guess Hulu put out their own as well. So haven't watched that yet. So I apologize if any information I miss, or something is paraphrased in a weird way that's debunked off the Hulu version or whatever. But regardless, I want to talk off the cuff. I want to speak my mind. Just I personally got from the movie, but also how much of a factor the wellness side of the people running the event, and also the quote unquote wealth behind it. So this is like the perfect day to do this because today we're talking about wealth and wellness because it's Wealth and Wellness Wednesday. So let's just jump right in. If you don't know what the Fyre Festival was, it was essentially what Netflix called the greatest party that never happened. Now, I'm not going to toot my own horn or anything, but I've had some experience in not only putting on shows, but even putting on events that have not only music, not only bands and musicians and lighting and production, but yeah, food, maybe entertainment in the beginning or after, the setup and tear down, the overall uh, the overall process of something like a festival. So to me, this really hit home because I can just imagine what all the individuals who went to put on this event, all the locals who took time out of their life to help partner with these people that weren't from, their country, and to essentially put on something that after all was said and done was just fraud, was just a whole big lie. And I mean, it's corrupt beyond belief, but this type of shit happens all the time. And I really want us to begin these types of conversations because I want you to know what's out there. I want you to be able to see a situation, to see the leadership, or to see the facade, or the disillusioned facts, or the just everything from like afar. Like I want you to see those things from afar, not have to necessarily be involved, and know to stay the hell away from those kinds of people. They're super stressful people. They're manipulative, and it's just it's just not worth it, and let the people that want to be a part of that crowd, that scene, that industry live in their own little world. Let them do it. There's no reason why you have to. And so right off the bat, the I guess the founder of it, or the creator, or the mastermind behind the festival, was a guy named Billy McFarland. Now, Billy, he had his own company before this. He was always an entrepreneur since like the age of 20. He was starting things, and he was a great salesman, which most corrupt people are. They're good at selling shit, and a fake imaginary thing that that can't exist and won't exist, especially the way in which they're going about it. So yeah, so he started his own like credit card company. I believe it's called Magnus. I'm just gonna Magnus, I believe. And pretty much it was just a company that allowed you to use their credit card, but it was, to get into private events or get backstage access, or just little perks that today, when you get an Amex card, you have that exclusivity where you can, look back on, applying for that card and being like, yeah, I made the right decision. Sure, anyone can give me credit, but if I can get credit and a little extra, why not? So that was kind of his bread and butter. That was his reputation. And after that was said and done, he ended up founding and becoming the CEO of Fyre Media, and that's Fire with a Y. And that was, I guess, going well, because they were actually planning on launching an app and having everyone who, they did a lot of social media stuff, but they also did, I believe, and scouting and chill. But uh, he had a longtime friend, who all of us know as Ja Rule, who essentially, they were talking. They decided that they were going to do this festival, and Billy had the idea of doing it on like an island. And initially, they had actually gotten most of that approved through I guess it was the lawyers of Pablo Escobar, and it was in the Bahamas. And supposedly, the price was like 8 to 10 million or something. But as Billy had done before, he was a good talker, a good motivator of other people to back him, initially at least, to fund his dream, or his thoughts, his vision. And so he wasn't necessarily paying for everything, but he was getting the funds from other investors. And lo and behold, it comes up in the video that, or the film, that he essentially was stating that they owned the island. But in all honesty, the only thing that they really owned was like a partial lease, and they hadn't even essentially paid for it yet. So they just showed up and just started scouting and running things. And their biggest promotion, their biggest, I guess, presence as far as advertising goes, was this really drawn out, elaborate, uh, you know, social media campaign with a lot of influencers, the top models at the time. And obviously, it's the Bahamas, so everything looks amazing. And granted, they got yachts, and they got, little areas where, they were serving drinks and having a good time. And, the models did what they did, the influencers did what they did. And essentially, everyone who was kind of a part of it was there enjoying this moment where, I mean, they kind of summed it up as, that was essentially Fyre Festival, was these 60 people hanging out on the island, taking video and taking all these shots to essentially, promote something that they didn't even know how it was going to happen, but they knew what it needed to look like. So, as all of us probably know, we ourselves are totally guilty of being fake at times, especially on social media, because we all take selfies and we all angle it a certain way so we look skinny or we look fit or we look whatever, or our outfit looks looks great. But they did that to the 10,000th degree. So they took all the best shots, all the best scenes and best people they could find to create this facade. And right there, as a business owner, as a leader, as a boss, as an employer, you don't want to do that. You don't want to give that false sense of a quality of life. You that should never be your goal unless you are actually able to do it. Either because you've already lived it. It'd be different if the Fyre Festival team or Fyre media team or whatever you want to call it, that group, which most of them were super innocent. Most of them are just, guys on and girls on computers at a office in New York. But for those who were a part of it, and I mean, this kind of stems into the spiritual wellness side. Like, there's something inside of all of us that goes, this probably isn't the best way to do something, or like I said, as an employer, a boss, a business owner, you need to have a fine line to what you create as being reality. And you know because there's that distortion field. I think that was a Steve Jobs term. But entering into this distortion field where you say something like it's actual fact, but at the end of the day there's no facts behind it. That's essentially what happened from the beginning to what became inevitably the end of quote unquote Fyre Festival. Because the thing never happened. People showed up. People were drawn to this social media campaign. They did this huge thing where they had all these influencers. And if you don't know what an influencer is, it's basically a person on social media who has a lot of people following them, and they're able to apply a brand, apply a product, apply a service to their brand or to their social media platform, and it can, you know, go like crazy. It's like fireworks. It's like, a rocket to the moon, literally within a day. And that's what happened with this social media campaign. They had all the right shots, the right photos, the right placement on all the platforms. And then they led everyone, almost to the slaughter by using influencers that they quote unquote paid, which I don't think most of them even got paid, or they were promised cabanas and luxury places to stay at the actual festival for doing one post. And as they posted these like orange, squares on Instagram, they just had the title, it's going down Fyre Festival, or the next big thing or whatever. And it was that draw of thousands, or I mean hundreds of thousands of people clicking that, going to the platform, seeing the amazing experience that they could go to and encounter. And all they, for the most people that could afford it, even probably people who couldn't afford it, would, at the drop of a hat, literally drop. I think some of the tickets went for like $250,000, something beyond belief, because that included, I think, airfare and the cabanas and this, the food and everything. Lo and behold, they didn't have any. When I say they, I mean the people running it, the Billies and the Ja Rules, had absolutely no idea how they were gonna do all those things on a remote island in the Bahamas, let alone if you did it in Miami or another bigger, hot climate kind of area. But yeah, they as the people were being drawn to it, as people were purchasing things, it was like fueling the fire. So the lie just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And once again, as some great salesmen can do, they can go along with the lie by creating other lies or by misleading other people or by saying the right things to the right people at the right time. Like one of the statements was some of the investors who invested in the festival, they were giving false, net income statements from Fyre Media saying that we're making millions of dollars, or we're getting people like Drake to come in and be at this festival for only $100,000. And so as they threw out these lower numbers, it was to add value to the opportunity as it being undervalued. And at that point, an investor would of course jump in because they're like, oh, well, this is easy money. It's almost like Bitcoin before the boom, or what I would say what gold is, but gold is actually an actual real opportunity with actual value behind it and actual history. So it was like that though. It was like that seeing the lotto tickets, or seeing the lotto numbers before the drawing and being able to type in your number. So as the people are signing up, as the amazing event is being casted out to the public via social media and the internet, in all reality, everyone in the Bahamas is, looking at these terrible tents and seeing these terrible environments. And originally, the island that they said they owned and said that they could host this amazing event at, it couldn't even hold 1,000 people, which I guess was the max that they sold out of. And we're seeing these numbers, and they're just baffled because they're like, how in the hell does a first time festival sell out, let alone sell out at such a high cost and a high, I don't know, like failure rate? Because flying anywhere, I mean, that's adding another element that you probably would normally just take care of it yourself, but they're offering the whole package. So they're going from this one island that they said they owned to a few other islands, and every time it would change. And before they thought they didn't need to change, they were like gonna rent a cruise ship to just park next to the island. That way people can go on and off. And yes, it would have been hard to get drunk people on late at night. But at the same time, if you guys have ever been on a cruise ship, I mean, you guys know how it is, especially if they are at port overnight. I mean, essentially, you can stay out as long as you want, and whenever you want to go back, there's a ferry that that can take you back and forth, and that would have solved so many problems. Yes, it wasn't what they had promoted. Yes, it wasn't what they sold. But if they would have just backtracked, said, "Hey, you know what? We're actually not able to provide so and so accommodations, but we're going to do basically one better." Because honestly, cruise ship amenities, food, everything, it's nice. Granted, some of them can be a little older, and some of them aren't like the newest amazing cruise ship, but that would have solved so many problems. But I think out of ego and out of trying to keep the lie alive, they said, no, we're not going to do the cruise ship thing, and let's just go to another island. And then that turned into another island, and then it turned into another island. Then all of a sudden they realized they couldn't even do it on an island in general, and they ended up doing it on a bigger piece of land in the Bahamas. But it was, they ended up using this one piece that kind of looked like an island, but it was still connected to the mainland. And the way that they got away with it was they just kind of traced the outline of the area and then made blue all the way around it as if it was an island. So as the real event is being created or built or set up or whatever you want to call it, I mean, there's so many problems, from getting more tents and getting more things like it, to renting out Airbnb places for the higher end people or the influencers, to artists backing out, to what's crazy too is that the people that were actually running that side of it and getting the resources to put it on were all the way in New York City, and they're sitting there on the phone 24 hours a day trying to figure out how to convince everybody to actually commit to doing this, other than just giving them a really crazy number that they're going to pay them, which is basically how it is. I mean, it would be like, yeah, it would be like our government saying like, "Oh, we need to pay off this debt. Well, let's just print that much money. So we're going to say that we're just going to print all that money and pay off that debt. So now we can pretend like it doesn't exist. Like we don't have to worry about it anymore because that's taken care of." So obviously, I think you guys know where it's headed, because as people start showing up, it was so instantaneous when they get there, because they're actually taken to another part of the island slash the mainland, to a like almost like a little resort, but there's hundreds of people there just getting drunk, eating food, hanging out. Um, they they had to wait there like 6 hours, something crazy. And then at that point, once they finally did get brought over to the location, the bus driver was the one that had to tell them, "Oh, yeah, you're really gonna hate, this scenario you're about to be in." And they thought he was kidding. They literally thought he was kidding. So as it's unfolding and as it's happening, people are just in awe that this is what they paid for, and this is what they're given. I mean, I believe that the tents were used for the last hurricane in the Bahamas, and they were just left over, so they got a good deal on them. Like no food, I think they're going to be terrible. There was a shot. I can't show it to you, but it's basically, it's a styrofoam, food holder, and it's got the three little areas. So there's the two little ones, and then a bigger area, and then in the bigger area, there's two pieces of bread, two pieces of like what looks like white American cheese, and then in one of the like little other areas, there's nothing in the third one, but in the one little area, there's some lettuce and like two tomatoes, and that was their gourmet food that they were offering the crowd. So once that post hit, it was basically done for. News outlets got a hold of it, and at that point, it was just, okay, how are we going to survive? Because there's really no way that any of us are going to get the experience that we thought. And now that we're in this situation, what are we going to do? So as we look back on this scenario, I'm gonna finish it up in a sec, but as we look at the wellness side of this scenario and the wealth behind it, so millions of dollars, I believe the total in fraud was almost $25 million that was used to basically create this facade. Things were paid for and things were spent for basically no reason. And then you have the people, their quality of life in those moments were so bad, like ethically, morally, that was probably like, hell on earth for those people. And imagine being taken to a place where you really can't get off, at least very quickly. There's no real food, there's no real place for you to stay, and essentially you're just trying to survive. Imagine getting thrown onto a desert island, even though it wasn't really a desert island, but there was no real, there's no Ubers, there's no rental cars, there's nothing you can do to get out. You literally have to just stay until you're told where to go. So it's almost like a prison, and then you almost have like the Stockholm syndrome, because essentially, you have to kind of just deal with the people running it, and there's nothing you can do other than just do what they say, and probably come back to them every time you need something, and even if you tried to get away, you probably had to come back. And so all that to be said, um, the concert never was held. The concert never went on. All the bands, if they didn't already pull out before the concert happened, the guy who actually booked them all through Fyre Media ended up just calling them and canceling everyone. So if that screwed over them more, I mean, so be it. But I mean, the real thing that should have happened is they should have immediately, which they were told to do by other people who felt convicted enough and had those ethics to tell the head of the whole entire project, you just need to cancel a majority of the tickets that you sold to those people, because at least they're going to get their money back. They won't have to go through all that trouble, all that time that they're going to spend going through that pain and anguish. And people just had too much pride. There was so much wealth involved that essentially the wealth overpowered the wellness. And I think we can relate to that. I mean, I'm sure there's situations that we've all been in where it literally came down to the wealth of the scenario, the project, the business, the job, the gig, the whatever, that it was worth it for the people running it, the leaders, to screw over everyone else so that they could get, they could fill their quota or meet their bottom line or whatever. And so it the so because the concert didn't happen, because everyone just ended up going home, and the people that actually showed up late had to just turn back around, via Skype and whatnot. They were still trying to flaunt the fact that, well, this is just bad PR. There was nothing we could have done, like just crazy shit that shouldn't be said. At that point, you should have been like, we fucked up, and there's really nothing we could do other than just apologize, try to make amends with as many people as we can, make it up to them as many ways as possible. I mean, even the locals, there was a lady who had a restaurant or a catering business, but she provided a lot of food for the whole process. She felt so bad that her friends, her employees, her partners didn't get paid, that she pulled out $50,000 out of her own savings to help fund the relief of this scenario. And that's not right. That's not right. And I mean, unfortunately, it was in a different country. So honestly, anything that Billy did, at least that I could tell, that wasn't with an American, or wasn't through an American lawsuit, it was basically fell on deaf ears. And so I it's I'm sad to say that I wish Billy would have learned his lesson, but I'm gonna finish the podcast with this, and it's gonna blow your mind. But so when they get back, when people are still pretending like it wasn't their fault, there's nothing they could do, and everyone else who was involved, who knew it wasn't gonna turn out the way they said, and was constantly being convicted and constantly bringing up the fact that this is wrong, we need to change it, but they weren't in control. It's like being at a bad job with bad leadership, and you can either put your foot in your mouth and get paid, or you can just leave. I know I've done that multiple jobs, because that's just I can't live my life like that. But as he is being prosecuted for this fraud, this basically $25 million fraud, he makes bail. I think it was $300,000, and he ends up living with his mom and dad, and then ends up somehow being able to rent a penthouse for a while. And then he decided that he was going to have a videographer come and film him. I guess like it's almost like the aftermath film. either for his own memoirs or for a future production for Netflix or Hulu. But essentially, he partners with another guy who ends up throwing another scam together about selling these fake VIP tickets and these fake event scenarios and it's so hilarious because all the people that were from the Fyre email list were getting them, and it always came from Frank at whatever the company was called, and they were able to trace all of the fake information from each email, like after the fact. I mean, people did it in real time, but when they showed it in the film, it was just hilarious that every single scam that they were trying to run to get people to spend thousands of dollars. I think someone ended up spending like 100 grand, but that got Billy sent to prison for 6 years. Either just that or the combination of the two, but federal prison for 6 years for fraud. And I mean, people shouldn't have to go through that, and inevitably the guy got what he deserved, but those 6 years aren't going to bring back the millions of dollars. They're not going to bring back everyone's time, everyone's, stress. I mean, you can't reduce the stress that causes your gray hairs. And yet these people put others through hell just because their egos are too big. And that's kind of where I want to leave it. I want everyone to be aware that these things do happen, and they do happen frequently. They might not happen at such a scale, 25 million, 500, but at the heart of it, at the root of the disease, the cancer, is not only bad wellness and a bad quality of life for everyone around this person, but it's bad leadership and it's bad wealth management. And I hope and I pray that this type of a podcast can really reveal the negative, only because I want you to be positive through every situation that you go through from here on out, whether it be emotional, environmental, intellectual, financial, spiritual, social, physical. I think I named them all. I want your wellness to be so in your hands. I want you to be empowered. I want you to be self-aware of who you are, to the point where that kind of shit is going to skim right off you. It's not going to go over your head. It's going to miss you by a mile, because you can see that shit from a mile away. You know what I mean? And so I hope that that's what this did. I mean, I really felt like heavy-hearted after watching it, to the point where I'm like, I mean, I don't even know if I can watch the Hulu one, because it's bad. Like, it's just a bad scenario. It's a bad horror movie. And I mean bad meaning like it's good at what it does. It literally horrified the crap out of me. And just, I mean, you hear about these things in the securities industry with retirements and pensions and stock market and other places that usually have that kind of fraud, Ponzi schemes. But to have just regular people trying to go to like what seemed to be a normal festival be abused by just having a love for music. And I mean, I'm not going to say it could have been me, but yeah, maybe 10, 15 years ago, if I was hired as a musician to play with a band that was going to be a headliner of this, I would probably do anything to make it happen. And that's the problem. The problem is that people will do things to create a reality. They'll move mountains and they'll distort reality to the point where, I've been guilty of it. I've literally put myself and my team through hell in different scenarios that shouldn't have ever happened, that shouldn't have been tolerated, and there was no gauge of the fact that, oh, I think we're overworking this volunteer, or Billy Bob's been working 40 hours already this week and you want him to work another 40. That's just not right. There's no quality of life in that scenario, in pushing someone over the edge like that. And as leaders, as future business owners and employers, we need to have our values, our morals, and our ethics figured out to the point where any of these kinds of scenarios can be just like immediately denied, declined. Nope, 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 nope. And yet, when there's a wealth part of it, when someone can see a dollar sign above people's wellness, it creates what we just talked about. And so, like I said, I'm going to leave it at that. If you do see the Hulu thing, let me know if it's any different, any better. I think the Netflix one was like an hour and 45 minutes. I mean, it was freaking long, to the point where my wife and I literally like paused it to go eat, or paused it to shower, or paused it to go run an errand, or it was like we literally had to like watch it in chunks. But we were very, very drawn because we don't like to see people go through that, and to see it happen in almost real time. I mean, they documented the whole damn thing. It wasn't just like the glamour shots from the advertising and then people getting interviewed after. It was literally in the process of the whole thing that they were able to capture. And then, I mean, the good and bad about documentation is all, and you see it all unfold. And it's like you can see the signs. It's like watching The Office and being like, Pam, you were supposed to date Jim the first day, but you didn't. And you waited how many seasons to finally divorce Roy, or walk out on Roy. And then by the time he came back, Jim was already gone and dating someone else. So I had to throw in an Office reference, right? Every episode. But yeah, as we hit around 40 minutes, I just want to once again just encourage everyone to be self-aware about yourself, about your own work ethic, and what you want to see in an employer. Take those questions and those realistic goals that you have for your future employer, and ask them. And you might be surprised at what you hear, good and bad. The employers that I've had, where if I would have asked them the right questions, because I'm self-aware about who I am, like, oh, if X, Y, and Z happens, what are you going to do to the employee? And depending on their answer, you're going to be able to tell if you want to work there forever or not. Because I think that's what our goal is as human beings. We always want to go to a place to work that we can see ourselves being there long term. Maybe not like in the old days where it was you get hired at 18, you work till you're 65, 55, whatever, and then you retire with a full pension and blah, blah, blah. So hope this helped. I appreciate everybody. This has been our Wealth and Wellness Wednesday podcast. We will see you later, and we love you. Bye-bye.